What the is a situationship?
The first time that I saw him IRL, not in like I'm coming over to like hang out, was like such a random moment for me. I was like on the way to a party and he was with his friend and we're like literally like I'm like walking down the street this way and he's going this way, like right by the Popeyes in Bushwick, if you know which one I'm talking about. And I'm like, oh hey, and he's like, hey. And
I'm with another bottom. This is weird.
Yeah, and he was like, this is so-and-so, and I was like, oh hey, I'm Alec, and I was like, I'm going this way. He's like, we're going this way. I'm like, cool. But
you're like, can I get the 6-piece
right
with the biscuits and the mash?
And do you have Lexapro? Because now I'm severely depressed. I felt myself feeling so not good this weekend because I was like, I feel like I'm craving attention and I'm craving
more than a daddy.
Yeah. And I've been off all apps, so like any ones that I'm hooking up with right now or that's in my sphere, I have to have their phone number to be able to communicate with them. So there's no net new. So it's all, so I texted him and then he's posting on Instagram that he said he was in Maryland, but it looks like he was in New York, but you know, people be posting late, whatever. But so I'm in a situationship with him, right? So I don't think that I have a bad view on our situationship, but it's very much that. And in his mind, it's not a situationship, right? Like, he's like, this is just some like younger dude that I just hook up with and invite over to my apartment.
Yeah, you're an ornament to his little Christmas tree.
Exactly.
He's like, bottom there, bottom here, bottom there, bottom there. Bushwick, Queens.
But I will say that with the development of us hooking up, I always bottomed because, you know, I love a daddy moment. But recently in our hookup, we've been flip-flopping.
Yeah.
And he's been loving it.
That's normal.
And it's been so hot, and so it's like taken our relationship
situationship
to the next level, like literally. And I'm like, oh my god, look at me like topping this daddy, and like he loving it, and I'm being like, the power. But the needless to say, I was like, well, text me when you're back because I want to see you, or like whatever. I don't even know if I said want to see you, but I'm thinking it, you know, because I'm craving physical touch.
Yeah, you're starting to like feel something for this person besides the physical stuff.
Yep. And so I have him, and then I also have Penthouse Billy.
Say that again?
Penthouse Billy.
Oh Lord.
And Penthouse Billy is really starting to fold up into a situationship that I'm driving the narrative of the situationship. He checks so many of my boxes of like what I want, but I know that I'm just a hole. And hot, and he's so hot, and the penthouse is beautiful, and he does cool things for work, and when we hang out, it doesn't feel like the way it does with like when I hang out with Billy, we do hook up and we have passionate sex, but then like I stay and we watch a movie and we order takeout and we talk about projects he's working on at work, and we talk about like we've been developing this the get to know you type thing. And our previous like hangout
rendezvous as they call them overseas.
On our previous rendezvous, after the end of it, he was like, I would love to go on like a business lunch with you, because obviously I talk about my career and what I do,
right.
And he was like, I'd love to pick your brain. So it was so interesting. Again, this guy, similar to the experience with seeing him out and about in a me pursuing you, we naturally saw each other. Him like he was like, he gave me his business card. I'm like emailing him through his business email. And we meet up at Sugarfish. I pick the location. Because I'm at least gonna get sushi out of it, bitch.
Of course.
And the way he was looking at me, it like, and I probably am making this up, but it made me feel like he was seeing me in a different light. He was like, did you do something different to your hair? And I'm like, no. Like, he just kept being, like, the way he was looking, it's like, I was like out of like sexual mode and like into like business mode, and he was like seeing me as more than just his cum rack.
You mean like as an actual person?
Right.
Yeah. Weird.
Totally weird. And so he was like, I would love for you, like, we're talking business. He's like, I'm loving all these ideas. Cool. I'm like, okay, great. I'm like, well, that's all I have. And so we finished lunch.
He's like, that's it?
Yeah. No, he was impressed. And I think that was another thing too. I think he was just like, again, like when you experience someone outside of just trying to f them, it's like not developing relationships, but I'm taking the situationship to a new level now. Like, it's not like we're just like ordering sushi at the apartment and like watching a movie and then I'm leaving.
Your new memoir, More Than a Hole.
Period. But not yet a woman, you know? Like, literally the last time I was at Billy's, I've spent the night twice. And the last time before that, it was like 3 a.m. and I was like, oh, he's definitely gonna let me spend the night. I'm so excited. Like, and he
Cancel the Uber.
He called me an Uber. Back to Brooklyn, and I'm on Upper East Side, and I like was devastated because it just
like, can I use the bathroom and shit in your toilet like you just shit in my heart?
Literally, because it just feels like, why does that feel like such a not like, it just made me feel unwanted. And so then after that I was like, I'm never gonna put myself in a situation where I'm thinking I'm gonna spend the night. So like the last time that we hung out, it was getting kind of late, and I was like, I'm not gonna be put into a situation where he says like, I called you an Uber. Like, I refuse to like let that happen. So I was like, I'm gonna leave. And he was like, no, bummer, like don't, like, and I was like, no, I am. And
then he starts texting the next bottom.
I'm sure he did, you know. But I left feeling empowered because
that's the takeaway.
Because I controlled the situation.
What's that Madonna song? It's like the power of goodbye.
Oh my god, I'm fucking dead.
I know. I'm like, are we old gays in Palm Springs reciting Madonna lyrics?
Hopefully, we'll be there soon. I mean, you're giving Palm Springs realness.
No, this is Florida shit. You're Cuban. You're from Georgia. You know. You should know the difference,
girl. But yeah, so I felt really empowered leaving then. But needless to say, I haven't heard from him since he's been back from his Australia trip.
How long has that been?
He got back on the 10th. So
9 days.
Exactly. But you know, he's like posting all over Instagram, and like I even made the mistake. I texted him while he was in Australia asking how Australia was, and he didn't respond. And I was like, you know what? Honestly, I needed him not to respond. Because if he would have texted me, it would have been like another grip of me being like, I'm going to be able to mold this guy into something that it's not. And that's the whole point of a situationship, is that there's one person driving a narrative and the other person isn't.
It's me.
And it sucks that that's been majority of my relationships. Like,
I think that's the majority of all of our relationships. I mean, there was one relationship that I had with a woman that like threw me into a fit. In fact, like the way that I reacted to it was, I'm gonna move to New York City and start my entire life over. Sell my bar, fuck this. And I don't want to give her that much power because she doesn't deserve it. Right. There's all of these things that are going through my mind, but she was like the catalyst that forced my whole thinking. And before that, there was a situationship that I was in with this guy that was like a friend of mine, right? Like, when I first met him, everyone, because the way we knew each other was he worked at this bar and I worked at a coffee shop around the corner. It was all in the same building. And of course, like all the gays were like, oh my God, they had a nickname for him. It's like, I don't want to say his real name.
Say it.
No. We'll say it was Sexy Mike. They're like, oh my God, Sexy Mike is here.
Mike in the house.
Sexy Mike. Everyone's like, oh my God, Sexy Mike is so hot. And he would go to the little speakeasy bar that he worked at, and he'd be like all dressed up and stuff. And I would go and I'd get like Manhattans and sip on cocktails after my shift and just be like, God, I fucking hate my life, you know, whatever. Like, what am I doing? And then we started talking. Like everyone kept saying like Sexy Mike. And I, like, honestly, I did not think anything of it.
Right.
Fast forward like a year later, him and I became like really good friends. And it got to the point where he would like wait for me after work. And then we would go hang out. We'd get in his pickup truck and like drive to some restaurant and eat and then would go to a bar or whatever, and then we would spend the night at each other's house. It reminded me of like being a kid again.
Yeah.
But then like something started forming, and I was like, whoa, this is like weird that I'm like feeling real emotions for this guy, right? And at that time I was experimenting with like my look, and so I had like purple hair.
Hot.
And I will remember this moment. I lived in this house where the landlord was a carpenter, and next to the house was this like big warehouse where they did like all these carpentry tricks and like
The carpentry tricks of it all.
like whatever. I'm not a mathematician. I don't know how they do it, but they were doing wood stuff.
Wood shop.
And so we went, and I remember we were all having like beers, and this is in Oregon, and so like everyone's like with their flannel, is like
Hot.
And I remember he made a comment where he's like, yeah, it's so weird that like, you know, this is why I'm attracted to guys that have purple hair. And it was kind of like one of those moments where I was like, oh, is he like insinuating something?
Right.
And as time went on, like we still would hang out, get drinks, go to a restaurant, spend the night at each other's house. Like he gave me his shirts to wear the next day at work. I would wear his shirt, blah, blah, blah. And then there was one moment where a girl that I had a huge crush on, after one night of hanging out, was like, hey, are you and Mike f***ing? And I was like, no, like what would make you think that? And then all my friends started being like, hey, you're like, you and Mike f***ing? And I was like, no, I wish. And then one night I went to the bar and I was like, hey man, how's it going? He's like, oh, it's good. And I was like, so you know, like
people think we're
so and so said that like she asked me that if we were like having sex, and he got pissed.
He was not into it.
No, like he was like, why the f*** she asked that? Why would she do this? And I was like, I don't know, let's go get a drink about it.
Yeah.
And like we got pretty drunk that night together. And then I remember a couple weeks after, we were sitting in his pickup truck. He had pulled over, and we were listening to like Glass Animals or something. And like we're just like, yeah, this is a good song. And he turns down that song, and he was like, hey, so Lisa told me that like you're in love with me. And I was thrown off guard. I was kind of like, that's true, but I can't reveal that to you.
Right.
So I was like, no, I love you like a brother. And he was like, okay. And we were both kind of, this was a little while ago, so I don't really remember. I kind of regret it now.
Right.
Because I wish I would have told him,
how you really
hey, actually, this is weird. I am in love with you. I don't know how to express that.
Yeah.
Physically, I've thought about it, but at the same time, it's still weird for me.
Right.
Because I've identified as like a straight male. I've had girlfriends.
Yep.
We've literally had sex with the same women.
Yeah.
And this is like a weird space to cross. And here was this moment, and I didn't meet the moment.
Right.
And that, I guess, in a weird way, was a situationship.
Absolutely, it was.
I guess the question that I have, because normally whenever I'm like with somebody, we it's pretty clear. There's been a few times where I'm like, this is so confusing, right? Yeah. Like I think there's a relationship here.
Yeah.
We're talking, we're texting, they're buying me things. I'm being celebrated in public with them, with their friends. We're going places, we're traveling together. And then at the end of the day, it's like, boom, ghosted.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I find out through Instagram they're someone else.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that just, like, we're adults. Just send me a text.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm someone else. I would have been like,
literally.
Okay, me too. Yeah. Lie.
Right.
But address it. And I think that's this weird gray area that we all live in, because we really are portraying one life on social media.
Yep.
And when the lines get blurred between the people that we're sleeping with in private and then the way that we live our lives in public, and they start to get introduced, and we start to feel like, oh, maybe this person could mold into my life. So you fold them in.
Yep.
And then you realize, oh, this isn't really working. But sometimes you're on the other side of it, where you're like, oh my God, this is absolutely working, and I'm being folded into their life, and like this feels like it's really going to some beautiful place, and then you just get
and that's what happened with, I had convinced myself that our situation was a real relationship. It wasn't. It was nothing of any of all the breadcrumbs that I was eating up were literally stale and grasping at straws. And the thing about a situationship is one person thinks it's a situationship and the other person thinks it's nothing. And that's what is the
most painful part.
Right. And I think with right now, I know that even though I'm being wined and dined and all of these things, and I've known so long, and Billy's flashy and is giving me all the quote unquote things that I want, that they're not gonna be my boyfriends. We're not gonna take it to the next level. But of course in my mind I'm like, well, I haven't expressed any of that to either of them, right? I haven't given either of those men the moment to be like, I know that we've been in this gray. Do you want to take it to the next level? One, out of fear. Two, I don't think one is the right one for that. And it wouldn't be fair, because then I think that then I would lose him as a hookup. And I don't want to lose him as a hookup because I do enjoy having sex with him.
I think that's the worst part of a situationship, is when you start expressing actual healthy boundaries with people in a way to course correct and be on the same page. Then it threatens the relationship.
Yep.
And there's parts of it that you value and want.
Yep.
But then now you're being emotionally manipulated and gaslit and hijacked into saying to yourself, if I express and implement these healthy boundaries, it will sacrifice the entire relationship.
Yep.
And then you start to gaslight yourself into thinking, oh my God, if I do these healthy things that are actually going to be really good for me in the end, it's going to ruin what I have, which there are parts of it that I want still.
Yep.
And that is traumatizing on so many levels.
Yep.
And the worst part of it is you're going through all these things in your head. They are not.
No.
100%, they don't give a
They don't give a
If you or anyone you know is in a situationship, please call 311 and get help immediately.